And when it comes to EVs and the recent anti-subsidy investigation, the EU's been quite clear. They're not trying to stop the import of Chinese-made electric vehicles into the EU. They simply want to ensure there's a level playing field between domestic producers and producers from China. And as I said, there's a twin track approach to that. So one is the imposition of tariffs, as we've seen with the recent anti-subsidy investigation, where the European Commission has said that there is an unfair amount of subsidy into the entire EV supply chain in China. Therefore, we're going to apply countervailing duties to try and balance out that unfair subsidy, so it's fair for European producers. But then, perhaps slightly more subtly, there's a range of other legislative tools that have been brought into place to try and raise the bar or create barriers for imports of Chinese technology into the EU. These measures, when you look at them on the tin, they're fairly generic. They're not necessarily aimed at China, but when you think about it and look at the impacts, they will play a role in defending Europe from Chinese imports. And there's a range of things. So perhaps the most obvious one is carbon border adjustment mechanism, where there's a different price that you pay when you import a product depending on the carbon intensity of the good. And if we note that much Chinese manufacturing still uses coal power, then well, there's an additional price that has to be paid there. The battery regulation, which is coming into play, so there's still quite some detail of that regulation to be finalized, but essentially that regulation would require batteries imported into Europe to meet certain carbon footprint standards. And again, if the Commission does its sums right and creates that regulation in the right way, that would be an effective ban on the import of batteries made in China into the EU, because they wouldn't contain or they wouldn't be sufficiently carbon neutral. Due diligence requirements, reporting requirements, deforestation regulation, all of these things create a bit of a barrier to imports that are perhaps made in China or have supply chains that touch on China or other areas of the world where maybe Europe thinks that the same standards don't apply.